You know conditionals are important, but every time you learn them, it's so complicated, right? Well, I don't understand why. English conditionals are really not that difficult, so I'm going to explain to you very, very simply how and when to use the 0, first, second, third, and mixed conditionals in English. And you're going to see that English conditionals are really not that scary. Okay, listen carefully because this definition of a conditional sentence is really going to help you for the whole of the rest of the lesson. Okay, a conditional sentence is basically two parts to a sentence. Part 1 starts with the word if, and this is the condition. Like, if this happens, then the second part of the sentence is the result. The result, if that condition is true. So, if this happens, that happens. If blah, 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 blue, blue, blue. Okay? And we can change the order of this. So we can say blue, blue, blue if blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter which order we put them in. But you must really make a division between the two parts of the sentence. If condition, result. Okay, have you got that? Because the 0, first, second, and third conditionals all have that in common. That is the structure of a conditional sentence. And the only reason we have a 0, first, second, and third conditional are to talk about different tenses of that condition. So let's have a look at these conditionals, starting with the 0 conditional, and you can download a summary of all the conditionals, including the examples, and even a test to test your knowledge of the conditionals in English by downloading that PDF, which is free, and there's a link to that in the description. Okay, let's get going. Okay, so as I mentioned, we have two parts to the sentence, if plus the condition and the result. With the 0 conditional, they both need to be in the present simple. Both of these parts of the sentence need to be in the present simple. And we use this 0 conditional to talk about facts. Things that happen all the time, or scientific facts. So, for example, if water reaches 0 degrees, it freezes. Or, water freezes if it reaches 0 degrees. We can also use the word when in the 0 conditional instead of the word if. So we can say, if you heat ice, it melts. Or, when you heat ice, it melts. Or changing the order, ice heats when you melt it. It's hot when the sun shines. Questions in the 0 conditional normally start with do or does, a question, and we normally put the if part, the condition, at the end of the sentence. Does metal melt when you heat it? Does rain turn to snow if it's 3 degrees Celsius? So quite simply, if you're talking about facts or things that always happen, use the 0 conditional. Easy. Of course, we have two parts to the first conditional. The part with if, the condition, must be in the present simple tense, and the result must be in the future with will. For example, if you subscribe to the channel, you will get new lessons from me every Friday. It's true. And again, the order of this is not important. We can say, I will call you if I hear any news, or if I hear any news, I will call you. Now, the 0 conditional talks about very general situations like ice, snow, things like that. But the first conditional talks about more specific situations, like I will call you if I hear any news. And the important thing is that we use the first conditional when we are pretty sure that the result is going to happen. Either we know it's going to happen, or it's very, very probable that it's going to happen. Like I tell my daily quick fix students, if you need me, I will be happy to help you. The condition is if you need me, and the result is I will be happy to reply. I will be happy to help you with your English. I know that I will be genuinely happy to do that. Now, the structure of the first conditional can be slightly modified if you want to use an imperative. An imperative is like an order. So instead of using will, like I will call you if I hear any news, we can use an imperative like call me if you hear any news. And we can also replace will with a modal verb in the first conditional. And when I say a modal verb, I mean things like may, might, could. For example, I might ask her to come if you don't mind. Or I may join you if I have time. Again, we can change the order. If I have time, I may join you. And that's okay too. For questions, we simply change the order of the subject or the person and will or the modal verb. We just go, and that's that. So instead of you will, it becomes will you. If you hear anything, will you call me? If you see him, will you ask how his mother is? Or instead of I may I? May I join you if I have time? Now, before we look at the second conditional, let's just have a look at one very common mistake that students make with the first conditional. And that mistake is using the word will with the if part of the sentence. If it will be sunny, we will go to the beach? No. If it is sunny, we will go to the beach. If needs to go with the present simple tense, and the result has to include the future with will. If you will study hard, you will pass the exam? No, don't put will in the condition. If you study hard, you will pass the exam. Just remember the expression, if I will makes me ill. Ugh, don't do it. All right, let's have a look at the second conditional. Okay, the two parts of the second conditional are if plus the past simple. If I ate, if I wanted, if I had. And the result is would plus the verb. I would buy, I would go, I would take. And as always, the order of these two parts of the sentence is not important. So, quick summary. We use the zero conditional to talk about general facts, things that happen all the time. We use the first conditional to talk about specific situations that will happen. We're almost sure that they're going to happen. The second conditional is used for situations that are very, very hypothetical, very, very unlikely to happen, almost impossible, or completely impossible. Like, are you going to win the lottery? Probably not. Are you going to visit the moon? No. And are you a wild animal? I don't think so. And they're the type of situations that, if we talk about them, we need the second conditional. So remembering the structure, if and the past simple for the condition, and then the result with would. If I won the lottery, I would buy a rocket. If I had a rocket, I would visit the moon. If I were a wild animal, I would be a lion. Okay, all of these situations are highly improbable or impossible and completely hypothetical. We can put both parts of these sentences in the negative if we want. Like, if I didn't work, I wouldn't have any money. If I didn't have any money, I would Ask my dad for some. And for questions using the second conditional, we put the would part in the question form. So, would you visit the moon if you had a rocket? What would you do if you won the lottery? Travel the world. Okay, which countries would you visit? Just change the order of the person and would. So instead of you would you? And Bob's your uncle. Now, a very, very common question that people ask me about the second conditional is, which is correct? If I was blah, 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 or if I were blah, blah, blah? Well, officially and formally, if I were is the correct option, but really in modern spoken English, you will hear if I was a lot. So much so that it sounds correct and it's really, really common. But hey, if you're writing an exam or if you're having a meal with the king, perhaps use if I were. Now, another very, very common mistake that students like you make with the second conditional is using the word would in the condition with if. Like, if I would meet Shakira, my heart would go faster. No, not if I would meet. It needs to be the past simple for that condition. If I met Shakira, my heart would go crazy. So similar to the expression that I told you in the first conditional, if I will makes me ill, think here, if I would, it's no good. So, how are you doing so far? Not too scary, right? Well, remember you can download the PDF there, which gives you a full summary of all these conditionals, all the examples, and a test. The link is in the description, and that's a little gift from me to you. All right, you ready for the third conditional? The third conditional, something I talk about a lot inside my daily quick fix group, and I always like to teach my quick fix students the pronunciation and the grammar of this at the same time. Because if you do, and if we focus on this, it's going to be much easier for you to understand native speakers when they're using this structure. And it's also going to help you use it more naturally. So let's have a look. Now, remember, we used the second conditional to talk about very, very hypothetical situations, things that were almost impossible, almost definitely not going to happen. But we were talking about the present and the future in that tense. If I had a rocket, I don't have a rocket, but I might, hypothetically, in the future. Well, the third conditional is very similar because we're talking about completely hypothetical and impossible situations, but in the past. In other words, we're talking about an event that didn't happen in the past. We're talking about a version of the past that didn't actually happen. So this is great for talking about things like regrets. Right, the structure of this third conditional is, with the if part, we need the past perfect. The past perfect is things like if I had known, if I had eaten, if I had taken. And I always recommend using the contraction for this. So instead of if I had known, say if I'd, if I'd known, if I'd eaten, if I'd taken. Then the result, if that condition is true, uses the structure would have and the past participle. I would have said, I would have been, I would have gone. Now, I said use the contraction for the first part of that sentence. You should also get into the habit of using the contraction for the result as well. So instead of would have said, you can say woulda. I would have said, I would have been, I would have gone. If you put the two parts of the sentence together, the third conditional looks like this. If I'd known her boyfriend had left her, I would have said something. Okay, I didn't know. This is a version of the past that didn't happen because I didn't know. But if I'd known, I would have said something. Okay, we have a bad egg. I didn't eat it. Phew, because if I'd eaten that bad egg, I would have been ill. If I'd eaten that bad egg, I would have been ill. If I had taken German at university, I would have lived in Germany for a year. Quickly, with the contractions, if I'd taken German at university, I would have lived in Germany for a year. I didn't take German, I took French at university. So again, we're talking about a version of the past that didn't happen. Again, to form questions in the third conditional, it's the would part that we want to make into a question. And we normally put that at the beginning of the sentence. We don't have to, but we normally do. Like, would you have gone to the beach yesterday if it had been sunny? What would you have become if you had studied medicine at university? What would you have become if you'd studied medicine at university? Okay, guess what? There's one more type of conditional. Let's have a look. What are mixed conditionals? Well, basically the 0, 1st, 2nd and 3rd conditionals all talk about a same time period. So with the 0 conditional, we have a present condition and a present result. With the first conditional, we have a future condition and a future result. With the 2nd conditional, it's a hypothetical future condition and a hypothetical future result. And in the 3rd conditional, it's a hypothetical past condition and a hypothetical past result. Now, mixed conditionals combine different time periods in each part of the sentence. So, which, when you think about it logically, means that there are 6 different mixed conditional combinations that we can have, and they're all correct. So the combinations are that we can have a past condition combined with a present or future result. We can have a present condition with a past or future result. And we have a future condition with a past or present result. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but let me just explain them briefly. The past and present combination talks about an unreal past situation and its result on the present. If he had passed his medicine exam, he would be a doctor now. He didn't pass. Past unreal situation. The result now, he would be a doctor now. The past and future combination talks about an imaginary past situation and its result on the future. My football team lost the semi-final. If they had won the semi-final in the past, they would be playing in tomorrow's final. Future. Okay, the present and past combination talks about an improbable present and its result on the past. So if they were a better team now, they would have won yesterday's semi-final. That's the result on the past. And the present and future talks about an improbable present and its result on the future. If they had good players, they don't. They would win tomorrow's final. Result on the future. Okay, for the future and past combination, we can talk about an unreal future and its effect on the past, like the final tomorrow. If the final wasn't in a different country, I would have bought a ticket. And combining the future and the present, we talk about a hypothetical situation in the future and its result on the present. If I were going to the game tomorrow, I would be so happy right now. So don't stress too much about these mixed conditionals. Just know that they are possible, you will hear them, and sometimes you will need them. Okay, now wait. There's one more type of conditional. Now, if you want to take your conditionals to an even higher level, you should learn some advanced conditionals. I'm not going to overcomplicate this video by talking about advanced conditionals. But if you want to have an advanced C1 level of English, you should really be comfortable using the advanced conditionals that I teach you in that video there. So download the summary and take the test from today's lesson, and if you're brave enough, I'll see you in that video next. Bye for now.